shoulders. I don't know how he could handle the weight on his shoulders, and that from your neighbor. And socialism is stealing from, but maybe truth behind this is the people who are really, you couldn't even express yourself on Facebook. That's when you knew you didn't have freedom to argue with me with facts.
Hey weirdo, welcome back. Today we're diving deep into the mind of a man who operates at the intersection of law, politics, and power. His name is Evan Turk, and his career trajectory reads like a political thriller. Evan started his professional life on Wall Street, where he built a career in finance at one of the world's most demanding institutions. But he didn't stay there. He went to law school, and his unique combination of financial expertise and legal acumen made him invaluable to high net worth clients navigating complex wealth protection and asset preservation strategies. He founded the Turk Law Group, which specializes in estate planning and asset protection for entrepreneurs, executives, and influential families. But that's only part of his story. Evan also served as the attorney for President Donald J. Trump, a role that he gave him an insider perspective on how the legal system works when you're at the center of a political storm. That experience seems to have shaped everything he's done now, because just a few years ago, he founded the American Rights Alliance, a nonprofit organization founded by Don Trump Jr., dedicated to defending what he calls civil liberties and fighting what he terms weaponized justice. The American Rights Alliance has become a significant player in some of the most controversial legal battles of our time. They're involved in defending the January 6 defendants, challenging election integrity cases, and fighting what Evan sees as government overreach and the politicalization of the legal system. So today, we're going to explore it all. We're going to talk about what it's like working for Trump as a client. We're going to dig into his philosophy on weaponized justice and the American Alliance or Rights Alliance mission. We'll discuss practical strategies for protecting wealth in an uncertain world, and we're going to have challenging conversations about the intersection of law, politics, and civil liberties in America. Evan told me before we started this conversation that he welcomes tough questions and enjoys a good debate. He's not afraid to push back, and he's not hiding anything. So we're going to have a real conversation, one that challenges your assumptions and that explores nuance. Evan, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. I'm really impressed with your work. And I really wanted to ask, what's the driving force behind your career?
It's just, I guess it's an entrepreneurial spirit that, I look at having one chance at this life and just making and taking every opportunity and seeing where it goes. It's not been easy, and it's been stressful. Many nights of waking up at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, just stressed because you have so much weight on your shoulders. But at the end of the day, when you look back, at that point, when you forget the stress, you look at it and you say to yourself, yes, that was worth it, because at least I know that I lived a life worth living.
Very fair. So let's dig into your past a little bit. Why did you pivot from finance into law?
I actually, just after college, I didn't want to go right into law school. So I moved out of my house, and the first job I got gave me the taste for finance. And I realized that it was a lot of things come hard to me. Learning finance, understanding it, it was a natural understanding. It just came very naturally to me. And within 4 or 5 months, I got a job with the company Prudential Securities in Princeton. And being a suburb of New York, Wall Street was a 50-minute train ride. So I had the best of both worlds. And I loved it, but I knew I was going to be a financial advisor or stockbroker my entire career. It was a stepping stone, and it gave me a niche into what I became and what I am as an attorney today.
It's funny that you said that because I had an accidental shift in my career too, because I went from computer programming into computer, like the IT side of things. And that gave me a leg up when I went back to programming. It's kind of nice to have that backup as an understanding, because you
Yeah.
get a good glimpse at things people don't understand.
Yeah.
And also it's very impressive that you were really good on the uptake to finance, because I spent 2 years trying to figure that all the,
Yeah.
that was a fun exploratory learning session. So your goal was always to practice law.
Correct.
And as part of that, you got to be the attorney for Donald J. Trump. What was
Yeah.
he like as a client?
I mean, you have to, or let me explain this. So I work directly for a very close colleague by the name of Peter Tickton. Peter Tickton went to high school, which was military school with the president. So he has known him, pretty much his entire life.
Yep.
And through just, I mean, I could say coincidence, but I don't believe in coincidence. Peter and I, our interests were aligned, and then he met with Alina Habba. Alina Habba is Trump's primary attorney, and she needed representation at the local level in the state of Florida. In came my influence and Peter's influence, and Peter was hired, so I worked alongside Peter. And it was and is quite interesting to work for someone who is so results oriented. And I don't know how someone can put, I talk about having all this weight on my shoulders. I don't know how he could handle the weight on his shoulders, knowing that if he makes one wrong move, they're going to try to assassinate him. They've done that a few times,
Mm.
or put him in jail. They've done that a few times as well. It's just amazing how your personality has to be, how strong it has to be, how confident you have to be. And the same thing with Peter, taking positions that are not necessarily going to be viewed by the media as strong positions. And when you go against the system, you'll see what happens and, who your friends are, who your friends aren't. And you get to see a little of everything. So working with the president, working with Peter, it's just been nothing but an incredible experience, and still is. I mean, I get to deal with things through the charity now, which I prefer rather than dealing primarily as an attorney.
This is placeholder media that you'll see if you add a layout to an empty scene. You can go ahead and delete it.
And let's get into your attorney, your nonprofit, American Rights Alliance. I don't know why I can't say. I do want to get more into this because I am more interested in this than Trump. You seem to be battling the narrative. Everybody, literally everywhere, seems to be against is what's going on. Can you describe what's going on with the political justice, or with the justice system being politicalized?
Yeah, it's been politicalized for quite some time. And since Trump's first term in office, you realize this wasn't a strike against somebody who was loved by mostly all, left and right. And, it's incredible. black, white, old and young. He was a true personality. Going to the Clintons' wedding, or the Clintons going to his wedding, and all of a sudden everyone stabs you in the back. Makes you think, why? What are they trying to keep hidden, right? And once you get power, you never want to give it up. And you have somebody who wasn't part of the establishment that had the keys to the castle. And all of a sudden, those who would never expect that in a million years had to pivot. So where do you go? You go through the racial tropes. You go through everything that can make someone look bad. Not only is he sexist, he's a racist. Not only is he a racist, he's a bad businessman. Not only is he a bad businessman, he's a criminal. Not only is he a criminal, he's a liar. And the list goes on and on and on. And what's incredible is, let's just say every human being has 10 things that the media could find fault with, just by the nature of being human, and maybe 90 things that could be a focus on, generosity and credentials and everything that would be powerful and highly attractive to be in a position as president of the United States. And yet you double down, you triple down, you quadruple down on those 10 things, you exploit it. Then when you have an opponent who has not 10 things, but has maybe 90 things you could find fault, and 10 things that, are maybe moving and powerful, and all of a sudden you see them only focusing on that. And I think the best thing about Biden being in office and looking back and having the election, I will say rigged, but I'll get into that. I'm not just saying that because that's a talking point. But I think you get to look back and see what a difference someone in office can make. And you have somebody who, previous to Trump, was sleeping on the job, yet everyone looked the other way. We didn't know who our president was. He slept through meetings. He was never speaking to the audience. He never, made himself available. He would speak at events and not know where he was. They had to give him instructions how to enter a stage, how to get off of a stage. And yet the media didn't really partake in that issue. They looked the other way.
I was going to say, if anything, they made that issue about Trump more than they made it about Biden during that time.
Absolutely. So then they used warfare against someone who, and now they say he's a convicted felon, but nobody could explain what he was convicted of.
If I'm not mistaken, it was 34 counts under one law, and it was for paying for sex.
It was not paying for sex. It was using, I think it was one of the things that they said was using government funds to protect a private matter. But yet the Clinton perfected
that whole thing to just say 34 counts, but it's against one crime. Like, you're like, yeah, it's 34 counts, but it doesn't mean it's 34 different crimes. And I think that's where most people caught up. I think it's he was caught on 32 different things, and that's why he's not.
But the press, they love talking about that. There is this guy, and I'm going to get his name wrong. It was so long ago. It was like Mumia Unjabar, something like that. Remember, this was in the 90s, and like all these bands, followed this guy who, and I don't want to mislead because this is my recollection of something that happened, I can't believe, like 30 something years ago, but it just made me, it alerted me back then, and it just still resonates today, is that this guy was breaking the law. Police were following him. They got him in a corner, and it looked like he was taking out his gun, so they shot him. And they found out later that there was no weapon on him. He was going into his pocket to get something, or to mislead the police to think that he was armed for whatever reason. Don't know. But I think Bruce Springsteen sang a song. It was called 12 Shots or 18 Shots or 40 Shots or whatever it was. And they basically said that the police and police brutality. They shot this guy, an unarmed guy, 18, let's use 18 times. Okay.
Yes.
And there was a song and this and that. But if you don't know what the truth is, you would think just like 34 counts, it's just a horrible number. It makes it worse than one count, right? I mean, you could murder somebody in the most deviant way and get convicted on one count, right? But
Yeah.
34 just sounds much worse.
I think that the reasoning for it is just they're being like, well, if we got the mob boss, I can't remember his name, on
On Gotti.
tax evasion, we could do the same on
Yeah.
Trump, right?
Yeah, exactly. So getting back to this Mumia in Jabbar, something like that name, I'm going to mispronounce it. But in that case, the reason why he got shot 18 times, I don't recall what the number was that if a policeman has to take out its gun to shoot, it serves only one purpose: shoot to kill. So in doing that, you're supposed to get and release all the bullets in your gun. That's why he was shot so many times. But the press knew that, media knew all of that, but they positioned it in a way where there was outrage. And I think protest led to, I'm sure someone got killed in some sort of protest, but the media has no accountability in misconstruing the story to sensationalize it. And that's when I realized years ago that the media is not covering things objectively, and neither are these artists. I hate to use the word artist because I don't know if these people are artists. Some are musicians that are no better than 99% of the people you run into at a bar singing, but they just got lucky and they got a break.
Yeah.
But some are truly artists and incredibly talented. So I don't want to disrespect that audience, but all of a sudden they become the kings of our moral conscience, and everybody has to agree with them because the media and the position and the slanting of everything is so one-sided that, you know, you can't take the other side without being considered a racist, bigot, or this or that. I mean, George Floyd is another perfect example. Now, I think common sense should have dictated that the officer shouldn't have left his knee on his neck for like 7 or 8 minutes. I think that was disgusting, but they made it a racial issue, which there was no evidence of race whatsoever. And you have the people that use the same template, get moral outrage, and then associate people like George Floyd to the white population, and then label the white population that are conservatives as domestic terrorists. And there's no causal nexus. There's no common sense. I mean, but we got to a society where our freedom to question things it gets lost. The media doesn't cover it, so you don't have a voice.
It's not only that. So this is something I've been getting into recently as well. It's every institution that we have growing up and what we've had through, I would agree with you, through the 90s to now, has been about one side being all of the talk and the other side just being bad because racism or other things. You actually start digging into the details of these things, and none of that's true. But I've been really looking into like how it shaped generation, like how the media has shaped a generation that's so liberal into the point where they're accepting socialism and communism as a form of retribution, revenge. I don't know, but it's not like they're looking there's no balance anymore. We have an entire generation that was raised on no balance between left and right. Nobody understands conservatism or liberalism anymore.
Right. Exactly. It's not even being like, I can understand why someone would want to become a Democrat. I really can. But their party has been taken over by extreme viewpoints. And it's just got to the point where it's like a light has got duller and duller. And now all of a sudden you're in a dark room and you don't know how you got there.
Honestly, I feel like that's how every government organization promotes people. I worked for the Ministry of Transportation for
Mhm.
the early part of my career. And
Mhm.
yeah, as you grow in your career, you get capped out your speciality, and then you're thrown into positions where you have no understanding, no control, they don't teach you. They just throw you in the position, say, here you go, this is your position now. And I think there is a lot of good people like in positions where they have that power. I just don't think they understand what they're doing.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you. I think what happens is that it becomes so difficult to swim against the current and so easy to swim with it that you may not necessarily agree with it. And there are so many people that have said to me time and again that they'll whisper in my ear, like, we agree with you, good job, good work, but we just can't take that public position. And, that's one of the reasons why my charity focuses on free speech, because if you feel like you can't exercise that freedom of speech because it will cause you unemployment, it will cause you a lot of personal issues, it will label you as a racist. I mean, who want to say that there are more than two genders, because I believe that they still should have the right, but laws should not reflect upon a very minority viewpoint that is so extreme and it's causing so much harm to others. I mean,
You
imagine yourself as a female athlete as an example. Your entire life you were training, and you're not even going to get it to a professional sport because you're a swimmer or you're, uh, you know, a weightlifter. I mean, these are two
Mhm.
sports where men who compete in those sports clearly dominate. I mean, last week they had the top seeded tennis player go against somebody who is, I mean, his rating in tennis is like 600 and something, but it's not truly because the way the rating, and he was injured, but he was a
Yeah.
top, at one time, top 20, top 30 player in the world, and they gave the female tennis player, you know, a bigger court to play on, so that her margin of error could be in a doubles, where his was in a singles. And I think it was that, or it was even smaller for his versus his, in portion, maybe he was
They
20.
had to compensate. They had to
Yeah.
give a handicap, even with
Yeah,
the vast difference in rank.
correct. So now you have, and he won. And now you have women are betraying women, saying that there is no, objective truth anymore. There is no, science doesn't matter. We don't need to say that the DNA of a man and a woman is different. I mean, you take a transgender, a man who's transitioned into being a woman for all purposes, looks like a woman, acts like a woman, is as body shape, everything as a woman. That person passes away, and 300 years from now, they find that person's fossils, and they'll know within 2 seconds in a DNA test whether that was
Mm.
a man or a woman. And yet, we have to question it and pretend what we're seeing is not true. And
I'm in the boat of I'm in the boat of, yeah, you can do that, go do that. I don't care, but don't think you're the same as everybody else, right? Like,
yeah,
you are new, you are something different. That's okay, but you can't say we're the same.
it's although I'm not technically a libertarian, and there's some reasons why I'm not, but I do value the thinking of libertarian, and I just think that in reality, there are certain things that governments need to intervene on in order for there to be society. Otherwise, you could lead into more of like anarchy. But I agree with 99% of libertarian viewpoints. Okay, and in
Yeah.
that viewpoint, as long as it's not hurting others, you can be whatever you want to be. But what happens if you have a person who clearly is a man wearing a dress going into a girl's bathroom, and I have a 13-year-old daughter. I'm not going into the woman's bathroom, and I'm not taking her to the man's restroom. I mean, and this is a real viable risk, and you can't express that because they say, "Oh, that's just an extreme," and this and that. But you live long enough, you go to the bathroom every day.
Yes.
Just not every woman's going to have to experience that. Or what about Leah Thomas, and the woman, male with male genitalia athlete that broke every single college female collegiate sport record in swimming? Meanwhile, these women that had nothing to do with this political position had to shower in the same room with a male with male genitalia. I mean, it's just, at what point do we, as a society, are so concerned about the well-being of others that we all have to suffer as a society?
You made a good point, and in Canada, we're actually going extremes on those. We have DEI policies that literally
Yeah.
separate white male men out of every position that is available. Right? Like, it's literally in every DEI policy, except
Mhm.
everybody, except for white men,
Yep.
unless they have a gender identity or some sort of identity to get them past that DEI policy.
So let's just say there's your dream job or dream salary, but you can't make it. You can't earn it. You can't get. You're not. You pass every qualification except that you were born as a male, which you didn't decide, and you were born Caucasian, which again you had no control over, right?
Mhm.
And so now you're not qualified due to somebody else who, doesn't have the same qualifications. Now, do you just pretend that you are you have gender dysphoria just so that you can get the job and now you could qualify for it? Then at what point do you work in that position with gender dysphoria and decide that you no longer have gender dysphoria, that you found God and you're cured? I mean, at what point then do you lose your job, or is that discrimination?
Yeah. At this point, I don't even know what their policies are on them. They don't uphold them too. So that's the other problem. It's like, you have these policies, but you don't uphold
Hmm.
any standard. What's the point in having these policies? To anger people? Like, that's
Yeah.
all you're doing.
Hmm.
Go ahead.
No, it's just infuriating. And this is really why, you know, the, this charity of mine exists because we just need a platform, bring common sense, civility, decency back to this country. And it's what's scary is you talk about globalization. I mean, Canada is so different than the Canada 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And you had who I loved watching. I couldn't believe he lost as prime minister.
Pierre.
Yeah, Pierre. What's his last name?
Polyev. Yeah.
Oh, Polyev, yes. I mean, his debates were incredible. Incredible. I would watch it.
This is the biggest thing that I noticed out of everything. So the election was fun because 2 years prior, the government went and brought in bills to make social media pay for individual links being posted on Meta and Google.
Right.
So Meta said, we're not doing that. We're not paying it. So we're not sharing Canadian news on our network or on our platform at all. But then as soon as that bill passed, there was a bunch of news being pushed all over social media, linking Pierre Polyev directly to what Trump was doing. Canada's Trump.
Yeah.
For 2 years before the election.
Yeah.
And you wonder why the election failed.
I mean, just watching him, just his debates, and it's just funny. I hate to say this, but I mean, it's the truth. In America, we look at Canada as like, not like a 51st state. I don't want to be insulting, but more or less like, a sibling of the United States, right? A friend it's kind of like going into a Zara world. It's the same, but a little different, right? Your coins, you go to the bowling alley and you have 3 rounds at these little balls. And I played hockey in college, so hockey is actually respected there. And yeah, it's just a little different, but not much. And then you realize that when the entire world went so far extreme ever since COVID, that Canada just accelerated that to a point where it's no longer recognizable. And
I got
it's
it.
just
I
easily.
equated it to we traded our civil liberties for free weed or for legalized weed.
Yeah.
That's
Good way of
because
saying it.
that's literally what we did in 2015. We were, I don't even remember because I was in college. I wasn't in politics at the time.
Mhm.
The prime minister was promising legalized weed. And then we got into that. And then I started getting into politics and being like, whoa, what are we doing here? And
Yeah.
then him coming out and saying we have no national identity. And then like, it's just a landslide of we're not Canadian. The only thing that makes us Canadian is we're not American. And I'm like, well, Canadians have always been defined as the people of a more like a moral compass to help the neighbors, regardless of who
Yeah.
they are, we don't contribute to left and right. We're just like, Canada's always been centrist. We're just, if it means people get to survive and be free, we're on the side. Otherwise, we don't care. We're staying out. We're gonna stand back. We lost that somehow as we're trying to be something we're not.
Yeah. It's the foundation. It's the same thing why socialism doesn't work, because it eventually leads into communism. It goes against, it's great as a theory. It's kind of like when you're a kid, you're told to share your toys, right? You share your toys. It's the right thing to do. What about the kid who, all his toys are broken because he doesn't take care of his toys, and now you're sharing your toys with the kid who's going to break your toys? At what point do you say, look, it doesn't make sense to share your toys because you're not encouraging the other kid to take care of his own toys because he could get everyone else's? I mean, it's this, right? And you learn this as a little kid.
And just
Ideally,
to, yeah, go ahead.
ideally, you would want all kids to take care of their toys, and as a society, we would be better. But we are self-preservation animals. That's our DNA. And although we can dress civilized, act civilized, deep inside, you are always competing against your neighbor, and if you see your neighbor's doing better than you can either do one of 2 things, or one of 3 things. You can try to work harder and make that opportunity present. And in the United States, that's very viable because you have more self-made millionaires and billionaires here than in the history of mankind anywhere, because government intrusion isn't as bad as other countries, and they encourage capitalism. Or 2, you can complain about it, or 3, you can steal from your neighbor. And socialism is stealing from your neighbor. It really is. I mean, there are certain things we all should encourage people to do. And, having a healthcare system that's much better than this country's, I don't,
It's honestly, it's not as good as everybody thinks it is anymore. Like
no, I
the
understand.
decline has made that really apparent.
I heard, because I was friendly with this Canadian woman who would tell me why the medical system in Canada is not what Americans think. Like Justin Trudeau, if he needed a procedure, he would cross the border and go into this
To
country.
the
Get it. Otherwise, he
yeah,
has to wait 6 months for an MRI or something crazy like that.
yeah. My partner is a nurse, so it's essentially what has happened with every organization or government or organization in Canada right now. All of the high level people made it into the bureaucracy, get the
Yeah.
high pay, but don't service the people. So all the people servicing the people no longer get the money, the incentive, the help, the need to service the system because the
Mhm.
bureaucrats sitting there are making too much and putting it in contracts that don't get you anything.
Mhm.
It's as soon as you get above a certain level in the system, it's just you sit at a computer and you're delegating people's lives. And that's all it is. And you get paid high money for that.
And I would be shocked if I'm wrong with what I'm saying is if you look at the average amount of hours that individual works during a day, productive hours, it's about 2 hours. I mean, I've read
Yes.
surveys and looked at it.
Oh yeah. 9 to 5 is a government job. They're not allowed to work outside unless they get approval for overtime. But then nurses and doctors are required to work double shifts if there's no replacement. They're required to clock in early for their shifts that they don't get paid for to assess the situations. They're screwed over at every
Yes,
decision.
so I am sure that if you look at of no basis other than common sense, but if you look at the number of doctors per capita, I mean, it's probably Americans have twice as many doctors per 1,000 people, something to that effect. Because why would you go through all that? I don't want to call it hell, but sleepless nights and kill yourself for what? There's no silver lining at the end of this. And, why would you also want to work in a field where you cross the border, that same position will get you 3 times the pay and, you know, six
Yeah.
weeks paid vacation and not have to worry about much. I mean, the driving force is selfishness. I mean, I really hate to say it, but it really is. So that's why capitalism works because once you fill your selfish need and you have enough food on your plate, you have enough food on your children's plate, and you have everything else and you have excess, you realize that you now need to find happiness. And your
Mhm.
happiness is in helping others. That's why people make substantial donations to charities because they aren't technically fulfilled yet. They want to help, but you have to have food on your plate first before you can help others. That's why when you're in an
That's
airplane, they say put the mask on your face and then your child, because you're not helpful if you're not able to help others because you haven't helped yourself first.
very fair. And that's why I built this. I'm planning eventually to turn this into a media company where I can help other creators and
Mhm.
expand. But I have to get to that point first
Yeah.
to build the company off my back, and then from there I can help others. And I understand that. And I love my partner's sense of worth that she gets
Mhm.
for helping people. I just wish the
Yeah.
system wasn't set up to screw her over. I do want to go back a little bit. So I do want to address the partnership between Canada and the US. just for the audience,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, Trump is only asking for Canada access to the dairy cartel that we have, like to kill our dairy cartel, access to build our and dig up our mineral resources through private companies, and to remove red tape.
Mm-hmm.
All of which sounds incredibly great for Canada.
Correct.
But this is what our government is not agreeing to.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming because it's Carney, it's for the net zero agenda more than anything else.
Yeah. Well,
And
let's go
yeah,
into that for a second. Why is Carney into this net zero? Like, why is everyone? Let's talk about this because I'm not an expert in this at all. So I don't want to pretend that I know more than the articles that I read and the positions that I have already. I mean, because, let me provide you with my little disclaimer. I may be completely
yeah,
wrong on this, but I feel like when people speak with such conviction that they're often wrong anyway, they just don't look at the facts, right? But a net
yeah.
zero and all of this, all right. So we had in our country, when Biden was in office, we couldn't do the Trans Canada pipeline because Native Americans in this one little area or fish in this other area. It's always something, right?
Yeah.
So what we end up doing is instead of becoming oil dependent, we become oil reliant. And now we have other countries who don't respect the atmosphere, now we're shipping oil from halfway across the world. I mean, how does that oil get here? I mean, do those ships do not pollute? How do they drill that oil within the guidelines of how we would drill it with the green energy purpose, right? I mean, the one that can save and lead the way are us, are Canada and the US. But where is this control of this green energy? And it makes you think, like, again, conspiracy theory, maybe, but maybe truth behind this is the people who are really pushing green energy care less about green energy. It's a control mechanism. They truly believe that it's kind of like when you use the race card. You no longer have to have a valid argument. All you have to do is just say you don't care about the society. You don't care about cleaning water. They have that woman, that kid, in Sweden. What is her name? And she's just now all of a sudden she's Greta. What is it, Greta?
Thunberg or something. Yeah.
She was so concerned about saving the planet, but all of a sudden she's so concerned about anti-Israel rights. I mean, how do you make that switch if your core is based on one thing and then you just switch? It makes you think. But
so
the thing in Canada is just crazy about energy.
So from what I can understand about net zero, a great person to talk to this information is a person named Desiree Fixler. She's a ex UK or UE or WEF member who was in the finance of net zero. She kind of alluded to how anything labeled net zero in the financial system could get premium rates.
Yes.
So essentially all the money that was funneled into net zero never made it to the R&D, never made it to the final science. It's all about where the money can get sucked out of. Like if you put your money in and half of it or more than half is being taken out by the system before it even gets to where it needs to go, then obviously you're not going to have an end product that's worth whatever they're saying it is, the cost.
Right.
So from what I understand, for the last 15 years, we have been putting a lot of money in and not a whole lot of R&D coming out because of this. People have been taking advantage of it through financial institutions offering these services to make your climate, the ESG credits and all that stuff. And then what I can't understand is if we had all of that money put into the R&D, we'd have net zero. We'd have that future that they want. But the problem is they didn't put the money into it. And now it's all falling out all over the world. Everybody's backing out except for Canada. But that's because Mark Carney was the CEO of Brookfield. And Brookfield is a major beneficiary of net zero initiatives and housing initiatives and everything Canada is trying to do with our government right now. Brookfield's a major purveyor in. So it's pretty much easy to put two and two together.
Yeah. I've been saying this, just follow the money. So we spent over $1 trillion in a war in Iraq that we didn't need, based on chemical weapons weapons of mass destruction that were never found. And yet we destabilized the entire Middle East by doing this. And the vice president just so happened to be on the board for a company that got all the contracts without a bid.
Yep.
You wonder why, right? Just follow the money. And that was a Republican government. It was a Republican administration. And it's just, I don't drink the political Kool-Aid. I just use common sense. And, when you follow the money, your answers are presented to you in simple ways, because you realize it's not about saving the earth. It's about control and power. And I do believe that there are a lot of people that believe in the rhetoric and are doing things with with kindness and with the right purpose, but they didn't realize that the people above them are misleading them and giving them
it's just a little bit of everybody's got good intentions. It's just the people at the top that are not always the best ones to be leading the situation. But the nice part, the one thing I do want to say out of this is we do now have the solutions for net zero. They're amazing. They work. The problem now is we don't have the resources because we refuse to dig them up to build them. Mm-hmm. It's just catch-22 across the board. And everybody's like, yeah, we're going to have it. And I'm like, yeah, but not unless we take 10 years to dig up all our resources. And to everybody out there that thinks climate change is real and it needs to be addressed. Yes, I'm not disagreeing with that. Climate change is real. I don't think it's an emergency. I think we're 200 years from an actual apocalyptic event, and we have the technology to start fixing it and reversing that change. So why are we complaining? Why are we throwing everything? That's kind of my final thoughts on the whole thing.
Yeah. No, I don't know if it's 200 years. I don't know if it's 2,000 years. I don't know if, we'll even be around as humans 200 years from now, based upon nobody is really concerned about the weapons of mass destruction. And, I think that will change the environment much quicker than any other man-made catastrophe. And there are ways of doing things the right way. And if everyone's that concerned about climate change, right? Why are those people so supportive of AI, which requires or Bitcoin, because it requires so much energy? Yet we don't discuss that because it's an inappropriate truth. We inconvenient truth. I mean, we only focus on the narrative and not the common sense behind it. But we are rewarded as a society by having a loud mouth, and who speaks louder and with more conviction wins the argument, regardless of the truth. You watch people, like I learned this when I was 17 years old. I was honored to go to this thing that was sponsored by the American Legion. It was called Boy State. It is called Boy State, still exists. And each state, they have representatives, and they create this mock society where you run for office. And I guess that's how I got my political involvement, my inspiration at 17 years old. But it was crazy because one of these congressmen spoke, and this one kid spoke up and asked a question. The congressman didn't like the question. So what he did was he yelled at the kid, and he said, "How dare you? I serve this nation. You know, rotten little." And the entire audience stood up and went like that and booed the kid because he spoke. And our counselor or whoever, our instructor, I forget what they were called. I mean, I'm 48 years old, so I'm remembering things that were 30 years ago, 31 years ago. I'm getting old. But I still remember he said this very calmly. He said, I saw you all pretty much stand up and applaud this guy. But here is what the facts on that argument are. And this is what the kid was asking. And this is what he answered. What did that person do other than use his advantage where he had the microphone? He had the he was polished as a politician, right? And he didn't have to state facts. He didn't have to fact check. All he did was spoke with much conviction. And the thing that really sucks is that's how most debates are won, is you speak with more conviction, you speak louder, and you use trigger words like racist, homophobic, insensitive, whatever the word of the day is, that's going to give you an advantage. The hardest thing for me is to have a debate with somebody that is the opposite gender, the opposite race, and a topic that I have to take a minority viewpoint on. Because the second I win, that person has a louder voice and can say things that have no factual basis for being said. And it's infuriating what we get to hear. And it's, if white men are so evil and are so bad, then why do people rush into countries that were founded and controlled by white men? I mean, go to the other countries, right? I mean, it just defies logic. But that's because I'm part of the, I don't know, use your racist, anti-Semitic, or, anti-male, whatever you want, tropes against me, because I can't state that because I am a majority class, although I'm not. But that's here.
No, well, technically we are. I think last projection is 8% world population. So we are a minority as much as people don't think we are. It's just not a minority in our countries, or almost not a minority. I don't even know anymore.
It doesn't matter. Once we become a minority in our own country, we'll always be the majority because you have to have some sort of power position. And, you can't say things that are insensitive because of the fear of insulting people. And that's, I'm quoting Jordan Peterson, an amazing Canadian, eh? So, but it's true. It's
I'm really happy that the buzzwords, the trigger words, are starting to have no effect. People are starting to be like, well, no, I don't care anymore. It's nice to finally be free. Like, this is why I play with the trolls, is because they think it's fun to insult me, and then I'm sitting here just being like, here are the facts. So those words are losing meaning, and I hope that at some point people start. We can get to a point where they actually mean things again.
We just can't become complacent, and that's why what I do is I challenge the laws to take away our freedoms. And I also support causes that I may not be keen on and want to say, but I also want to have the ability for others to express their social injustices in a platform that can have objective reasoning. And one of the things I love about AI is that any position that I'm very adamant, I'm 80-90% convinced I'm right, rather than argue with somebody and just double down on my reasoning, I use AI and say, okay, this is my viewpoint. Give me every reason why I could possibly be incorrect. and justify it with things, real life events. And AI does a great, I mean, I find that AI is biased, especially if you put in January 6 things. I mean, what I've seen, what I know versus what the media has went a false narrative and what the truth is. I mean, it's eventually, hopefully will come out. But, at this point, that's the only thing I see on AI that's really skewed, or election fraud. I mean, there are things
Yeah.
that we see right now that clearly, you don't have to have a advanced degree in common
No
sense here.
IDs. Yeah. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The no IDs to vote.
No IDs, or the Dominion machines, which
Mm.
during Trump's first election, all of a sudden, these mail-in ballots, you had COVID, you had all these things that were all at the same time that were irregular, right?
Mm.
And then they kept saying during the whole time, right before election, COVID came out. In this country, it turned into a lot of mail-in ballots, right? And I'm not saying I'm right about this. I'm just questioning, like, why don't we challenge this? And I remember, if you said that it came out of the Wuhan lab where they were testing that specific thing,
Mhm.
uh, that was pure just coincidence, and it came from a wet market, right? It- Down the street. So, you know, but yet when President Trump called it the China virus at that time, just identifying its origin, you couldn't say that because that was considered racist. But saying it came from a Chinese wet market when you knew it didn't, that wasn't. Oh, these
Sure.
people are uncivilized. They go in there and they eat. There's bats there, and they cut off their heads and give it to them, and they eat it. I mean, like, come on now, like,
I
really?
mean, even
Crazy.
even if you were logically thinking about that situation, you have a lab down the street from a wet market.
Yeah.
First problem right there. Why do you have a food industry so close to a lab with dangerous viruses? Second problem, or second conclusion, which would be more likely, wouldn't it be more likely that a scientist happened to have it on them and walked to that wet market
Mhm.
more than anything else? Like, just basic common sense of framing it. I don't know. That's just my thoughts on things.
No, but nobody questioned it. I mean, and it just really amazed me how the masses were like, no, you got to believe them. And if not, you're racist, or you're one of those conspiracy theorists. And the problem becoming a conspiracy theorist is that there was an episode on The Simpsons a long time ago. I mean, I'm dating myself, but I've been dating myself this whole episode. But Homer is having a problem with his wife, Marge, and he looks and he doesn't know what the letters mean, but it's like, you know, single white male looking for, and it was like a gay man, this, and this, but he's so innocent, doesn't know what he's saying. He's like, oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. And then all of a sudden it gets weird. And he's like, oh, I don't like, no, I don't like that. And he's like, gotta go, hang up, right? But like the problem is being labeled a conspiracy theorist is you feel like you align yourself with a lot of people who are conspiracy theorists, but then all of a sudden you realize that you don't agree with them on 90% of the other things. So you don't want to call yourself a conspiracy theorist because you don't want to line yourself up with people that they just say such crazy things, and you're like, I don't agree with that. I don't want to be labeled conspiracy theorist. But you also are somebody who questions the narrative. And, I don't have the answers. And when people say, oh, it was this or it was that, you don't know. You don't know, but at least question it. And then it's funny because the people who you think you see eye to eye on, then they tell you other things, and you're like, no, no, you're crazy. You're wrong. I mean, and there's all these movements within the movements that don't necessarily want to agree with. I mean, I just want to capture a free America where people can say, I believe that it came from a lab, and not be considered a nut job. And then years later, they tell you, oh, by the way, we think that it did come. Oh, really? Really?
Yeah.
Well, when the elections and everything else were skewed because of that, or the laptop in our country, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, had this laptop and all this incriminating evidence, and they knew it was his laptop. What did they do? They went after the people who spoke the bastions of truth. The New York Post reported. It wasn't like, some ultra conservative, conspiracy theorist news outlet. It was a mainstream news outlet. You couldn't even express yourself on Facebook. That's when you knew you didn't have freedom of speech.
So just to say that, according to Canadians, the New York Times is now billionaire owned and not pushing the narratives Canadians want, not or pushing American narratives on Canada. So it's just funny that that's what's going on nowadays. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy where we're at. I do want to give you just like 5 minutes or like the last little bit to kind of give some final thoughts and where people can find you, just to wind up here, because we ended up in a conversation that was really, really enjoyable.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So 5 minutes, final thoughts. So first of all, as an American, we do love Canada. I do love Canadian hockey, and it really upset me when in the World Hockey League, when you saw Canada and America fight. And this was not based on, brotherhood, but this was based on an agenda and miscategorizing and misunderstanding and pure deception. And I want to see America, and I always feel America leads the way, but we always have our brother called Canada, next to us. And, we always considered that ever since, I guess after the War of 1812, we weren't your friends back then, but ever since then, we always counted on you. And, we're helping the Canadians as well with our organization, with what happened during COVID and the truckers and the protests,
Yeah.
all of those things that, we're, for the first time, people are coming to this country seeking, freedom from Canada, which we should all be aware of. I mean, when has anyone from Canada come to the United States before seeking freedom? When we have a outlet based on politics and media that are so extreme, that makes the nation divisive, it makes the world divisive. It only could lead to wars, to lives and everything else. What I like to see and what I found with this charity is freedom. Freedom to protect all opinions, and not to say an opinion that we don't agree with is not necessarily wrong or problematic, but it's a minority opinion or a different opinion. And it would be nice to see logic and honest narrative. I was blessed to have known Charlie Kirk for years. I was on his advisory council for Turning Point USA. And to have somebody who believed in God and was God driven, but to have a narrative to say that he was anything but who he truly was is infuriating. And, I would challenge those people as to why they think that way. But most of the time, people don't think that way. They're just shepherds and they're told that's the way you have. And what we try to do is have difference of opinions, objectivity, and not emotional resolutions. We cannot lead a world based on feelings and emotions, because at that point, we'll just get conquered by some society that doesn't have emotions and feelings as its driving force. In this
Somalia.
country,
Sorry.
yeah, exactly. But you can't look into like countries like that or question countries like that and cost taxpayers billions of dollars. We don't realize what good could have come out of that. Rather, all we know is that we have problems, identify those problems, but we have to look the other way because it doesn't fix the narrative. And they knew this a few years ago, but they didn't want to discover it, wanted the main source of society, unearth it and say this is a problem because it didn't fit a narrative that they wanted to fix. If this was a different group, maybe not Somalia, that was going on and defunding and defrauding a whole system that was meant to help children and to help people who need, assistance from the government to survive and to move forward with their life, and only to see that money taken and misused and cost every Minnesotan thousands of dollars to enrich people. I mean, the outrage should be more, but I think people don't want to offend others, or they just rather look the other way
Yeah.
because of fear more than anything else. So freedom of speech is pivotal to everything else. And everything I said, I'm sure that although I've gotten people to listen and say, yeah, I agree with them, I will have people who hate every single thing I said. And you're entitled to that. But do not argue back and use tropes of racism or sexism, misogynistic. Tell me why I'm wrong
Yeah.
in a way that I can say, you know what? I didn't see it that way. Or I understand it differently now that you positioned it from your perspective. Don't fight me by using words like F you, because that will just
Yeah.
support my opinion even more. Argue with me with facts, with compassion and dignity. Don't speak louder. Don't speak with such conviction. And understand that every decision we have made as a society has evolved over time. 20 years ago, I think it was Clinton who defined marriages between a man and a woman. And now in this country and just about every free society, that idea has changed. Why has it changed? It's changed because society does evolve. As a society, we can evolve, but we have to still be first and foremost a society. And a society is what it is if there's freedom to challenge, freedom to speak up, and freedom to know that you have a fair chance to succeed. And it's not based on your race. It's not based on your gender. It's not based on your religion. It's based on your character and your contribution. And there's no way of defending racism with racism because you only just changed a racist to a different race cause. I just don't understand any of that. I don't understand equity. Equity says that we will lower the standards of everything for fairness. Rather than bringing everyone up, we'll bring everyone down. You know, it's kind of like you have a 5-foot female that's never played basketball, put her in the NBA because it's not fair because she had no reason to think she had a chance to be in the NBA because of the social doctrine of society. You know, we think of that as foolishness, but yet in other careers and other paths, we are accepting. If that happens, we'll not evolve, we will devolve. And this is how societies end because they get taken over by people who aren't so concerned about your rights. They're more concerned about taking those rights away. And the last thing I'll leave to is, you know, everything that I want to say can be wrapped up in one movement, and it's called Queers for Palestine. So I don't need to say anything more than that. Either you get me or you don't, but that epitomizes the entire problem in 3 words.
Okay. Yep. No, I know exactly where you're going with that. I don't know if the audience will, but I hope they do. And if anybody doesn't, just say in the comments, and I'll respond with.
You know, I'll be
the
more than
message for you.
happy. I'll be more than happy. You're fighting against the only society in the Middle East that supports homosexuality, that there's pride parades and everything, and trying to basically seek the destruction of that society for a society that if you ever went there, they would hang you.
It's a great note to end the podcast on. Where can people find you?
If you like me and you want to help support the cause, you can find me on the AmericanRightsAlliance.org. If you don't like me, disregard what I just said. That's our charity. My name's Evan Turk. I have a law firm, Turk Law Group, where I represent people helping families, multi-generational values, Judeo-Christian principles, you know, encouraging family values as the driving force for an evolving society. And we help families protect their wealth, grow their wealth, and protect it from people who want to take it unnecessarily. And that's turklawgroup.com. My name's Evan Turk. I am on a network called Real America's Voice. We share it's a national, it's actually online as well, presence. So you can see it in Canada as well. It's called A Case for America. You could watch our show on Saturdays at 4 o'clock, which we highlight the cases that the American Rights Alliance is pushing forward. Right now, we have someone who challenged the election, and as a supervisor of elections, she was supposed to erase data, and she sent it to a whistleblower to protect federal law over state law, and she's been in jail. A 75-year-old woman's been in jail for quite some time now. We got the president to pardon her, but we still have an uphill battle because this is in America. We have states and federal rights that they don't necessarily see eye to eye on. So although she's pardoned on the federal level, she's not yet on the state level. You can look at the cases that we're bringing. We're helping Canadians that are seeking
Asylum.
in America, which is unheard of, but that's what's happening. And on A Case for America, we highlighted what we're doing there as well. You can go online and find that show. It's quite interesting. And reach out to us on social media. I don't keep myself hidden yet, but again, my name's Evan Turk, CEO, founder of the American Rights Alliance.
Not a problem. We'll make sure everything's in the description down below for everybody to be able to reach out. And I might end up being one of those asylum seekers one day, depending on how the laws get put into place. And some of them are looking very scary. So that might actually happen.
Thank you again.